Claire gazed out of the attic window, watching the dark clouds billow in the late afternoon sky. A storm was brewing, mirroring the turmoil in her heart. Her father, Richard Donovan, had been relentless in his search for her, sending agents, private investigators, even hacking into her email accounts. But Claire was resolute. She had escaped the gilded cage of her father's mansion, the suffocating world of wealth and expectations, and she wasn't going back. She clutched the worn teddy bear close, its fur soft and comforting. This was all she had left of her mother, a symbol of the love and warmth that had existed before her father's cold grip tightened around the remnants of her family. The rain poured down mercilessly that night, each drop pounding against the old, creaking roof of Ethan's small suburban house. He stood at the window, arms crossed, his mind heavy with the usual worries: rent, groceries, and the endless question of how to raise his 8-year-old son alone without breaking under the weight of life's burdens. Just then, a sound cut through the storm, a soft, broken sob drifting in from the porch. Ethan opened the door, and his eyes fell on a young woman huddled against the wall, soaked to the bone, her face hidden behind trembling hands. Her suitcase, battered and muddy, sat beside her like the last remnant of a life unraveling. "Hey, are you all right?" Ethan asked gently, his voice warm but cautious.
Boss?
The girl lifted her face, mascara streaked with tears, lips trembling. "I'm sorry, Elgo. Just needed somewhere dry for a moment." "Please don't call anyone." Something in her voice, so fragile and desperate, stopped him cold. She wasn't like the people he occasionally saw drifting through town looking for trouble. There was a softness in her eyes, a pain too deep to be feigned. Without thinking twice, Ethan extended his hand. "You can stay here tonight. I rent out the spare room sometimes. It's nothing fancy, but it's warm." The girl stared at him, hesitation battling with exhaustion. Finally she whispered, "Thank you," and followed him inside. Her name was Claire. That was all she offered. She spoke little over dinner, pushing food around her plate as Ethan's son Liam chattered about his day at school. But Ethan noticed how Claire's eyes softened when Liam proudly showed her a drawing he'd made. It was the first time she smiled all evening, though the sadness never left her eyes. Days turned into weeks, and Claire's presence slowly wove into the fabric of their small household. She was quiet but kind, helping Liam with homework, washing dishes without being asked, even fixing a broken hinge on the front door. Yet at night, Ethan sometimes overheard her crying softly in her room. He didn't pry. He knew what it meant to carry pain silently. One evening, as the three of them ate dinner together, Liam piped up, "Claire, you should stay here forever. You make Dad smile more." Ethan laughed it off, embarrassed. But he caught the flicker of emotion in Claire's eyes, a longing mixed with fear. The truth began to unravel one day when Ethan came home early from work. He found Claire in the living room, staring at her phone, her hands trembling as tears rolled down her cheeks. On the screen was a news article, "Missing Heiress. Claire, Donovan, daughter of billionaire CEO Richard Donovan, still not found." Ethan froze. Everything clicked: the expensive-looking suitcase, the way she avoided questions about her past, the sadness in her eyes. She wasn't just a lost girl. She was someone running from a world that had every luxury, but none of the love she craved. "Claire," Ethan said gently, "why didn't you tell me?" She dropped the phone and buried her face in her hands. "Because I didn't want you to see me as her. Out there, I'm just the Donovan heiress. To my father, I'm a business deal. To strangers, I'm money. No one sees me. But here, with you and Liam, I feel like a person again." Her voice cracked, and Ethan felt a lump rise in his throat. He had lost his wife years ago and knew the ache of being unseen, of being reduced to a label, the single dad. He sat beside her, his hand brushing hers. "You're not just a name to us. You're Claire." That's enough. But their fragile peace was threatened weeks later when black SUVs rolled up outside the house. Richard Donovan himself stepped out, his presence commanding, his suit immaculate even in the dust of Ethan's driveway. His men fanned out like shadows, searching. Claire stood frozen, panic in her eyes. "He's here." Ethan squeezed her hand. "Do you want to go with him?" She shook her head furiously, tears welling. "No, please, don't let him take me. I just want a life that's mine." When Richard entered the house, His gaze swept the room like a storm. Claire, enough of this nonsense. You're coming home. Ethan stepped between them, his heart pounding. With all due respect, sir, she's not a child. She deserves to decide where she belongs. Richard's jaw tightened, unused to defiance. Do you have any idea who I am? Yes, Ethan said firmly. But do you know who she is? Because I do. She's kind. She's strong. She's not just your daughter or your heir. She's a person who deserves to be loved, not owned. For the first time, Richard faltered. His daughter, standing behind Ethan, looked at him with pleading eyes, not for money, not for privilege, but for freedom. Silence filled the room until Richard finally exhaled and lowered his voice. If this is truly what you want, Claire, then I'll step back. Just know the door is always open. And with that, he left. The house was quiet again, but Claire's sobs broke the silence. She turned to Ethan and Liam, her heart overflowing. I don't know what I did to deserve this, but thank you for giving me a family when I had none. From that day on, Claire stayed. Not as a tenant, not as a runaway heiress, but as someone finally free to build a life of her own. She cooked with Ethan, read bedtime stories to Liam, and slowly began to heal. And in that small, weathered house, love grew, not the kind built on wealth or status, but the kind born from kindness, courage, and the belief that even broken people can find a home again. By the end, Ethan realized something. He hadn't just rented a room to a crying stranger. It opened his door to the missing piece of his family. And Claire, she'd found something no amount of money could ever buy: belonging. And if you enjoyed this story, please remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more heartwarming tales.